Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of
Pod with Us.
I'm Daisy.
And I'm Mike. And today we're going to dive into a topic that every single marriage, every single relationship has to deal with. They have to deal with it probably 50 times a week, 5,000 times a week, 5 million times a week. Doesn't matter how long it will take, you will definitely experience it. And typically, you know, there are some people experience the honeymoon period of marriage or the honeymoon period of their relationship. And some have a good experience, some have had a bad experience. And typically the bad experiences are typically triggered by conflict. A conflicting of ideas, a conflicting of communication styles, a conflict of attitude, a conflict of approaches, conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Just
conflicts. Them arguments from early in the morning,
literally, to
late at night, in the middle of the day,
over text message. You know, I'm thinking of those IGs or those TikToks where you get like some random cat or some animal in some type of like stress motion, maybe typing a fake keyboard, and then you know, just texting my husband if he still loves me, because the way that he brushed his teeth was a bit too hard today, and I'm wondering if he still loves me.
If only conflict was that laissez-faire and that flippant, it would be amazing. But the reality is most of the time it's not.
It really is a supercharged conversation when the conflict is in the room.
It is.
And this episode 9, is all about navigating conflict in marriage. And look, it's not just tied to marriage, it's tied to any relationship you're in, it's tied to any...
It can really apply to dealing with your parents, your friends, your siblings, work,
anybody you're talking to that you have a relationship with. Conflict is going to be there.
It is. And it's one of those things that there's no running away from it.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable in every relationship that you're in. You're going to disagree at one point, but what matters is how you handle it, because that's either going to strengthen or weaken the relationship that you have. So it's wondering how and asking those key questions on how do we navigate disagreements in a healthy way.
Well, before we pop on that question, I think we've got to understand where do conflicts come from. You know, what is the root cause of them? And taking a biblical worldview of it, we're broken people. We are. Trying to live out a perfect institution.
Yep.
In the way that it was delivered to humankind as we believe. And boy, I mean, in the last episode, we were speaking about Ephesians 5 and the high call of a husband and a wife. And is it 50-50, or what kind of balance of the percentage scale is it on? It's tough living up to all of those things.
It's rough in these streets.
She said it's rough in these streets.
No, but it can really be hard because, like you said, we're two broken people, which means that we're not always going to get it right, which means that the lens of which we view things from is already tainted. Yeah. It's already, sometimes our lens is already out of focus. It's not strong. It's not focused. It's not on the right thing. So already sometimes I can come to you with an attitude that already stinks. It's already wrong.
Me too. But I'm coming with an attitude that's really rough, and I'm a bit short in my sentences and my tone, stuff like that.
And then to add on to all of that, as if that isn't enough, we're also looking through the lens of our past experiences, past traumas, past how you've been brought up, how you've seen conflict handled in like your parents' relationship, in siblings, in even outer family, how your aunties and uncles are, church family, if you've spent a lot of time in church family, like different scenarios.
Exactly.
All those things are playing a factor in your mind when you have that one moment when you think, how am I going to address this? Or how am I going to respond to what he's just brought up? And in your mind, simultaneously, all these pistons are firing, and it's like experiences there, traumas there, vulnerabilities there, then the word is telling you to do this, this, and then you're feeling like you should do
Injustice.
this, and anger and rage and emotions and all these things are firing at the same time, and then you just explode. And it's just it's almost like, in action movies when you have that slow-mo moment when they fire the gun and then you see the bullet traveling in slow-mo, and it's like you can see the air, it's cutting the air through it. That's literally what it feels like. It feels like, what's about to fire out my mouth in this moment? Is it going to be something that's going to bring peace and resolution, or is it something that's going to cut you? Because everything in me wants to cut you right now.
Justice calls for it. When you use the bullet analogy, I don't think in any circumstance a bullet can ever bring peace. It's only going to bring war, settle the matter.
That's true, actually. Probably the wrong analogy to use. But it shows you what's really at the core of my heart. I'm a broken person, guys.
We are broken people. And I think before we can answer the question of how do we navigate disagreements in a healthy way, I think first we have to accept that brokenness in each other.
Yeah.
We got to. We can't expect the other person to be perfect, put together. Everything about you just needs to be, you're a perfect communicator. You are and that includes the listening, that includes the powerful questions, that includes, how to give feedback and not using their trigger words and knowing everything about them and everything you just mentioned, the history and the different ways that we have been affected, imprinted upon and become the humans we are today in adult form. We can't expect our spouse to know all of these things all of the time. Goodness me,
we don't even know all those.
We don't even know ourselves.
Right.
Say that again.
There's some times when you're going through something, and it's not until that very moment that you realize, wow, I need to work through some things because that was not cool. That was not okay.
Yeah. And it's you surprise yourself. Like, did I actually say that?
Yeah. Why did I? And you have to ask yourself, why did I respond like that? Why? I didn't even know I had it in me, like, for that to come out of me. Where did that come from? And you have to take a moment to reflect and go back and think. But you didn't know that until that very moment. So it's... Do
you know what's interesting? Sunday just gone, I talked about a message about the terrible tongue. And Matthew 15, Christ is then saying, look, what comes out of the heart is evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornication, thefts, false witness, slanders, / blasphemies.
Yep.
And you read the text and you're like, really? Really? But it all shows up when you're in conflict.
It really does.
When you're face to face, toe to toe, nose to nose, butt to butt with your fellow person. Yeah. And everything you just said, I feel that sense. I've been wronged. I've been disrespected. I've been unloved. Misunderstood. I deserve to be heard. I'm going to stop time, cut time in two with my words, cut you in two with my words, and let you know the injustice that I feel, because I need to right a wrong that I feel.
And it's so funny because as you're saying that, I'm just thinking that conflict in marriage is so different to conflict in other relationships. There's something about your husband or your wife that just triggers you in another way. There's just something about it. Like, you can have the same conversation and discussion with a friend, with a brother, sister, mother, uncle, father, and it just doesn't trigger you in the same way. But there's certain times when you say something, it's like everything in me just boils and I'm like, no, he did not.
Your skin is on fire.
Literally. But anybody else could have said it and I would have been completely understanding, fine, gracious in my response. But you say it and it's like, why did he say that? How could he?
I'm going to open the floodgates of my mouth. Let it flow.
I'm a new person. I'm a new creation.
No, literally, Matthew 12 is like, literally, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And all of these things I just mentioned a little bit ago is all cooking.
It really is.
And you're going to give that person the best of the meal. You're going to cook up a whole 7-course meal. That person's going to eat every single word.
No crumbs left. But today we are going to flip it around in this episode because we wanted to talk about the 5 big no-nos that we have learned along the way when it comes to conflict.
Okay, now.
When it comes to managing them arguments.
How do we?
When it comes to those crossroads, there are 5 no-nos, like absolute, do not cross this line, do not go there.
You're going to take
reverse.
that nuclear, you're going to go past a line you're probably not going to come back from.
Yeah. So
take us through number 1, Daisy.
Number 1, I think, has to be bringing up important things in public.
Say what now?
This always is just having certain discussions in public is just, it's a no-no. It's a no-no. We like, it's so important to wait until you're in private.
Yeah.
Like, pick your moment, pick the right moment to address the issue when both of you are calm and ready to engage in like a really good, healthy, constructive conversation. And that doesn't always mean that you're both going to be really happy and honky-dory. No, we can be upset, but we're both in a mindset where we're ready to engage in this conversation.
Yeah.
But doing it in public is just, And it's so funny we say this because we often engage in very juicy discussions in public in front of people, which can sometimes be perceived as arguments, which it's not actually. We just enjoy debating a lot. But I think there is a line when it now crosses over into, okay, this conversation now needs to, this is not for public.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of things? You said, bringing up key things. I mean, there are things and there are key things. How do you see the difference between the two?
To be honest, anything. My thing is anything. Just don't address anything to me in public because, number one, you don't know. Already being out in public means that, for example, me and you we differ in this actually. I am very aware and conscious when we're out in public. I'm that girl that's
super duper aware.
I'm that girl that's like, shh, you're speaking too loud. Like, oh my God, the table next to us can hear. Shh,
hold on, guys. I need to unpack this wrapper because this is tasting too sweet to let it go. If Daisy wants to communicate to me in public and she wants to get my attention on a thing and I engage her in that conversation and let's say her whisper is at, let's say, 10 decibels and my whisper is at 11 decibels, she will tell me, be quiet, they can hear you. Or we could be, we can come back home from a ride anywhere in the car. We're outside and then, we're looking around and we might see a neighbor or a person walking down the street, or we might see something that might trigger the conversation. The car windows are closed. She laughing because she knows we're probably 3 or 4 houses down the road and we're talking about something that we've noticed another day about a neighbor or their garden or their house or something. And they're like, shh, they can hear you. Be quiet. I'm like, what do you mean they can't hear anything?
I'm
so Daisy's super aware,
girl.
super sensitive about stuff like that.
I am, and I don't like having. There's just certain things that I'm just like. There's no need for other people to be included in this conversation. Like we understand a context that other people don't. So you could bring up something to me that I have that context, but the person sitting next to us who's hearing this conversation, our friends, our family, don't have that context. They now walk away thinking, did you hear the way he spoke to his wife? Like, rah, that's mad. Like, that was wild. Like, and she just sat there and took it and da-da-da-da-da. And don't get me wrong, on one hand, I don't care what people's opinions are to a certain degree. And on the other hand, I do, because it also comes from the perspective of, I don't ever want people to have a picture or an image of you that is untrue, that does not reflect the likeness of who you are. So that one snapshot can leave somebody with an impression of you that is not correct. It's not accurate. And to some degree, I probably shouldn't care as much as I do about this, but I do. And those kind of things really get to me. So having certain conversations, or really like even correcting, like there's certain things that I don't think I'd correct you in public. Like I don't believe I have. There's times when I've lost my like a control of my emotions, so I've been super emotional and I've just snapped in the moment. But I'd like to think that I always apologize after.
She likes to think. You've got a good record, but you like to think.
The key part is I've got a good record. Do you hear that, people? But yeah, so I think addressing things and just having awkward and uncomfortable conversations in public is a no-no, because the other person may be already uncomfortable. So bringing up something that's going to trigger them in a public place in front of people, I just think it's never a good idea.
Yeah, and that really kind of opens us up to number 2, which is, a big no-no is attacking and blaming.
100%.
Now, this is different from holding somebody accountable and taking responsibility, but just attacking, blaming with words that are trigger words that are intentional to hurt, to blame, to cause pain, and to get a rise out of somebody. That's a definite no-no. And it feels good to say those words. It feels good to release because you want them to feel how you feel or how you believe they have made you feel. I want to equalize the strike and the blow in whatever it is. Yeah, I'm going to do that. But I think practicing, even if it's 1 second a day, keep doing it every single day, expressing your feelings in a way that is clear, it is authentic, it is real. You do not betray how you truly feel, but you use your words. You use words. You don't just call somebody, you're stupid. Are you dumb? It's questions of like, hey, look,
come on now.
I feel like I've expressed myself on a certain point. How does that fix with you? How does that read with you? Is there anything that you just don't understand what I've just said? It's really important that you really get this point before we move on. That communicating, using your words to express your feelings rather than being lazy and using short words that are hurtful, words that are disrespectful, unloving, and throwing it across the room, expecting it to do what you want it to do, when all it has the power to do is just damage. So we should definitely avoid sweeping issues under the rug, because it only leads to bigger problems down the road. It's just compounding the effect.
Right.
It's compounding the issue, because then when that big problem then snaps your back, and you're going to say what you have to say, what are you going to do? You're going to go back into the record and pull out issue number 1 that wasn't resolved, issue number 2 that wasn't resolved,
reeling them off
and recounting them all in front of their face, thinking, wait, what? Hold on a second, let's go back to this, let's deal with this. So the more you do that, the more it's going to be difficult to have that sense of control, to have that sense of calm, to have that sense of constructive conversation, constructive feedback or criticism that builds rather than tears down. So don't let the sun go down in your anger. Don't attack, don't blame, explain.
Yeah, let your words
definitely explain it
with grace.
Nobody's trying to start World War III out here.
No. And that can be really hard sometimes. Because when you're trying to express yourself in that moment, it can really feel like you are to blame, therefore, how do I express myself without saying the obvious? He was to blame. He was in the wrong. I'm just stating the obvious. I'm not blaming you. If the shoe fits, but bruh, that's up to you. Really considering why, like, what do I want to get across in this moment? What do I want to communicate to you? And how do I do that in the most constructive way? Because sometimes when you blame somebody, when you're attacking the person, they shut down like straight away.
Literally.
They've just shut down.
They've
so
stopped
you've
listening.
just lost them. So therefore, whatever you wanted to communicate isn't going to be heard anyway, because you've started and set off on the wrong foot.
Because they're in defense mode. They're thinking, okay, I'm just listening to things that I can say, yeah, you're wrong on that one. You haven't got that correct. That's not accurate.
Exactly.
And they're undermining you. We easily get into gaslight mode. And it's just now out of control.
The pressure, it's like a pressure cooker releasing. And that, what you've just said is so true, because that goes on to point number 3, which is defensive interruptions.
Hey.
What do I mean by that? Somebody's talking, they're there expressing themselves, and you're like, excuse me, I didn't say that. Nope, I didn't say that. That's not true. no, you're recalling that incorrectly. No, and they haven't even spoken yet, or they haven't even gotten their point out, or they haven't finished.
What do you usually say? Let me finish. I'm speaking, and then that just triggers me even more. And I'm like, I know you're speaking, but you're saying it wrong. You're actually speaking on something that's inaccurate. Let's have an honest and open conversation. And it just gets a bit messy, doesn't it?
Right. It gets really messy. And I think the counterpart to that is really being, and we've heard this term so often.
I'm a trainer. I've said it so many times.
And it's probably so overused, but it really does. It's the best word that we can use, which is active listening.
Intentional listening.
Literally.
Yeah.
We have to really listen, and not listen to respond, not listen to line up your point, but really listening to understand that person's perspective, which can be so hard when you feel like you've been done dirty. When you feel like, hey, you're not being fair to me, it almost feels like, why should I listen to you? Why should I even try and understand what you're saying?
Right.
Why should I? But again, it goes back to that sense of reminding yourself of the point of this conversation. What is it? Like, we're always seeking to find that common ground. That should be the aim in every conversation. We're seeking to find common ground and come back together. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to agree that, yes, you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm wrong and you're right, but we have to come to a place where we find some sense of common ground.
Definitely.
And in order to do that, we can't do that if I'm listening just to be like, yeah, no, he got that wrong. Oh, I've got something for you. Oh, yeah. Go on. Let me loose, because I'm about to finish you, annihilate you, because what you're saying does not even make sense. And us ladies, I've said this before and I'll say it again, our tongue, woo, we can cut down nations, worlds, galaxies, universes with our tongues, right? So it really does take discipline and love to be able to put that aside and say, I'm going to focus on this. And in order to do that, you have to show your spouse, you have to show your husband, your wife, that, do you know what? I'm actively listening to you. I'm seeking to understand, which means putting down that phone.
And it goes beyond just words.
Right.
It goes beyond just, I'm just recalling back to you the words I've heard in my ears.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you understand by the word? Did it point to a deeper meaning, a deeper reason, a deeper motive that my words are trying to convey? Or are you saying that, wait, I've listened verbatim and I can recall the very words you've said, but I don't really care about the meaning. The meaning, sorry.
The meaning, right. Yeah, you have to demonstrate. You have to be able to demonstrate that I'm actually understanding you, or at least I'm seeking to understand you. And I think there's a popular misconception that understanding somebody means agreeing with them. So oftentimes people feel like, if I show you I understand you, you're going to assume that means you're right and I'm wrong.
Right.
No, I can understand the point you're making and still disagree with it.
Yeah.
But in order for me to disagree with it, I have to understand. Otherwise, what am I disagreeing with if I don't understand?
Exactly.
So in order to move forward in any conversation, we have to seek that understanding. Otherwise, we're not moving forward. We're just going round and round in circles. So again, it goes back to those practical things that we can do, which is putting down your phone, making eye contact, really listening to what your spouse is saying and being able to validate them and let them know that you hear and understand where they're coming from. We use common things like, okay, let me get this right. Did you say da 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 da? And is this what you meant? Blah blah blah. And then the person will come back and say, yes, that's exactly what I meant, or no. Okay, you've got this part right, but this part, this is more where I was leaning towards.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. And that doesn't always work. Like, we're not 100% on this, but we try to do that. And I think when we do that, our conversations are more constructive.
Absolutely. I was just going to mention that, the power of recapitulation. Listen to what the person said. And I've seen you do it. Sometimes you take notes. You literally, like, if we're in the office, you take a note and you just write something down on a Post-it note, or we're downstairs and we write it down on our notes. And there's been a few times we've asked each other permission. Can we record this conversation? And sometimes we're like, it's not the right time for that, or let's record it because we need to hear ourselves back. Yeah. Not just where these words actually said, but also the tone in which it was said. Yeah, exactly. So use the tools around you to help recapitulation happen and say, I think I got it right there, or I understood it there. You say, listen, Mike or Daisy, you didn't get it. Yeah. You didn't get it. So that is definitely something, a no-no, is defensive interruptions. Number 4 is we don't have to die on every hill that we stand on.
Say it again.
It's okay to hit the pause button, people. We do not have to stand, or we do not have to die on every hill that we stand on. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say, you know what, we can agree to disagree. Is this mission critical? Is this going to push our marriage forward? Is this going to push ourselves forward? No. Sometimes we got to cool off. Sometimes we got to hit the pause button. Sometimes we just need to just take a step back and remember what is actually making a difference in our world.
Right.
Is this I mean, we could be watching, for example, a program. Obviously, we can't name them, and we've paused it because it's something's triggered the conversation. We pause, we talk, and then sometimes the objective conversation becomes subjective towards us.
Right.
And we're making slights and we're doing indirects toward each other.
We're throwing that shade.
Shade is in the room.
Ooh, it's getting
and it's like, wait, hold on a second.
Here.
This is a TV program.
It's not that deep.
Let's pause. Let's take a step back and get back to watching it and let that point go, because it's not actually an issue for us. It's just something we feel strongly about, because it could be a masculine issue or a feminine issue that has always brought interesting conversations across the world. So remember that conflict resolution is a skill. It takes practice. It takes effort. It takes intentionality. And if the conversation is just no longer constructive, just hit the pause button. Literally step away, breathe, and refocus on the original goal. And sometimes that can show up as in like, okay, cool, thanks for your thoughts. Appreciate you sharing. And the person's thinking, what do you mean, thank you for your thoughts?
Is that all you have to say?
Is that all you got to say about this? Yes, all I've got to say. You intentionally say, look, I can see this conversation is going left, and I can already feel that this conversation is going to end up in an argument. I just haven't got the energy today. But please share your thoughts. But even that can come across quite patronizing and quite sarcastic, but you've got to deliver it in a way. That's where the practice comes into it.
Yeah.
Where the person can detect the tones in your voice that are not about sarcasm, but it's genuine. I don't want to argue with you today.
I'm burnt out right now.
I'm burnt out. I don't want a conflict.
But also presenting an alternative time, saying that, do you know what, right now, I just don't have the capacity in me to have this conversation. Why don't we have it tomorrow morning? Why don't we have it later on this evening? Why don't we have, let me work through A, B, C, D, which is really pressing my mind or taking up a lot of time and mass in my mind right now. Let me clear that out the way. Then I'll be in a better headspace to have this conversation with you. I think that's really important, because sometimes when we just say, I'm not in the mind space to have this conversation, it leaves the other person thinking, okay, so what do I do with what I need to express and get off my chest? When do I get to...
Let them voice it. Let them air it out. I hear you.
So that's really key, yeah. And I think the last point number 5, is a really important one and often overlooked, but it's leaving God out of it.
Stop doing that.
Stop leaving God out of it, guys. Pray about it. And that sounds so Sunday school, but it honestly is such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
But pray about it. Seek through the Bible together. You know, let's dive into the Bible together as a couple and say, what does God say about this issue? What is his heart on this? Even if it doesn't reference it directly, there is definitely something that you can find in the Bible that will give you a sense of direction on whatever issue or conflict it is that you've got going on.
Yeah.
Praying together is so powerful, whether it's like literally physically together or whether it's you in your corner and me in my corner, but just being able to offload and bring all that pain and frustration and struggle before God, that can help you gain so much clarity, wisdom, focus. And also there's something about coming before God, whether it's through the word or through prayer, that also really humbles you. It humbles you. It really helps you gain that sense of humility where you realize how imperfect you are before such a great God. And when I realize my imperfections, it makes me look at your imperfections so much differently. And suddenly, when I remember how much grace, mercy, and love God has bestowed on me, who's so undeserving, it makes me all the more keen. And humbled and convicted to show grace, mercy, and forgiveness to you.
Yeah.
So I think leaving God out of it is such a massive mistake. Sometimes we feel like it's not a God issue. It's not a God thing. We have to deal with this by ourselves. We have to deal with it. But it's like, no, everything is a God issue.
Absolutely.
God wants to be involved in everything. Every part of our imperfection is a God issue. So let's bring it to God. Let's let him and allow him and his Holy Spirit work through us to work out whatever issue it is that we've got going on in this moment.
Absolutely. Lord, if you mark our transgressions, who will stand?
Right.
But if it wasn't by the blood of the Lamb. So, yeah, like, and there's another benefit of bringing things to God in prayer, because you release to him, you give him, it's like an exchange. You give him all of your anxieties, your cares, your worries about an issue. He then in turns gives you peace that guards your heart. And when we're in a high tense situation, or we're holding on to things that we think that we need to deal with, the other person needs to hear what I'm feeling, and we can hold it for one day, 1 week, whatever. It disarms you. It actually defloods you. It flushes out all of the flooding of the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions, the hormones, whatever could be flooding around in our system. It flushes you out.
Right.
So when you see that person again, hopefully what shouldn't come to mind is just breathing at them.
Yep.
You're just going to be like, you know what? Yeah, it wasn't that deep. I can smile, I can look at you, love you. We can still call each other our pet names and all these things. So there's huge benefit not leaving God out of that picture.
100%. And when we look at the Bible, Ephesians 4:32 reminds us to be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ, God, forgave us. So this really reminds us that forgiveness is such a cornerstone in marriage. It really helps us to move forward with grace and love towards each other. Forgiveness is literally that foundation that helps us to be able to function daily as a couple, because daily you're going to offend each other.
Yeah.
Daily you're going to irritate each other. You're going to get on each other's nerves.
You just have to accept it.
It's a part of life.
Yeah.
So without that foundation of I'm committed to forgiving this person,
that's the key.
Over and over again, we don't move forward.
That's the key.
So if we're not stepping into any conflict, any argument, any dispute, if we're not stepping in with that mindset already of I need to find a way to forgive this person, I resolve in myself that I'm forgiving this person, I'm just communicating to you where it went wrong and what you did, but I'm forgiving you. Like, that has to be the number one. So we really have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be patient with each other. As we navigate these conversations together, remembering that we're two imperfect people that are really being held together by our commitment to each other, but most importantly, our commitment and our covenant to God, and to ensuring that our marriage reflects and glorifies him perfectly. So it's okay to not get it right every time, but it's not okay to just give up and stop trying.
I'll say it one more time. It's
okay to not get it right every time, but it's not okay to just stop trying.
Exactly. Love that. So true. It's sometimes hard to remember that in the moment.
It is.
But it's when you calm down, look at each other and say, hey, babes, come on. Let's love each other again. Let's forgive each other again. And that's the whole 1 Corinthians 13 verse. Love is all the things that we can never achieve unless God is in the picture.
Yeah.
Unless that commitment to God, help us live out your values in a marriage that we're trying to work after what you want us to do and how you want us to do it. Wow. Have we gone all through 5 stops?
Oh, we've hit all 5 stops.
5 points.
We've hit them all. Number 1, don't bring up key things or don't bring up arguments in public.
Number 2, stop attacking, no blaming.
Number 3, allow those defensive interruptions. Just let's practice active listening.
And number 4, don't be dying on every hill that you want to be standing on. It's okay to pause.
That's right. And number 5, and most importantly, don't leave God out of it. Pray about it.
Pray about it.
Seek his word for it.
Wow.
Whew.
Let us know what you think, guys. Let us know what tips, what good practice that you do in your relationships, wherever you are, whether you are courting, newlyweds, married, short-term, long-term. Tell us, what are your learns? We want to learn from you as well. We did say it at the very beginning of this season. We want to learn from you. We want to know what you are doing, what's working for you.
Right.
So follow us on Instagram, _pod with us. We are on Spotify. We are on YouTube. We are on Apple Podcasts.
And we have a poll that's going to be going out very, very soon on our Instagram. So make sure you follow us on Instagram so you can let us know, because we are on episode 9, which means we're one away, guys,
from the season finale.
End of the season.
And we're making the last episode all about your questions.
That's right.
All of your questions, whatever you have, how many there are, we're going to choose all the best ones and fit it into an episode.
Or as many as we can get through.
We're
going to try and get through as many of them as we can, depending on hopefully we'll get some questions. So don't leave us hanging, guys.
Sure we will.
Send those questions in. And our final episode of this season 1, which I can't even believe we've made it to. It's like a pinch me moment. But yeah, it's all going to be over to you. So we will be doing a poll on Instagram. So make sure that you jump on there and let us know your thoughts. We're going to be running the poll for about a few days. So we'll give you guys a chance to answer. So yeah, make sure you jump on there and let us know your thoughts. So episode 10, we'll be answering all your questions.
Love it, love it, love it. Until then, thanks for joining us for another episode of
Pod with us.